Somebody is yelling his guts out on the ground, and somebody else is yelling for a corpsman. Then you hear the droning of helicopters, or the malarial buzzing of mosquitoes in your blood, or the Gatling guns rattling, or a door gunner strafing a rice paddy in a free-fire zone. All these things at once, all the sounds interchangeable. And when you awake, you go immediately to the icebox, your hand shaking on the first bottle you can pull out. But enough with Sir Charles and the NVA and memories of Shitsville. Dave's and my histories with NOPD turned out dramatically different. Dave never dishonored his badge, and I did. I took juice from the mob and accidentally popped a federal witness and had to blow the big sleazy and join up with the leftists in El Sal. I also worked for the greaseballs in Las Vegas and Reno and up in Montana, where they tried to build a couple of Nevada-style casinos on Flathead Lake, which would have turned their state into a toilet. Regarding the latter, an airplane packed with wise guys crashed into the side of a mountain not far from the lake. Their remains had to be combed out of the trees with garden rakes. Then somebody spread a rumor there was sand in the fuel tanks. I thought it was a good opportunity to take a cruise up to Alaska and maybe later open a PI business back in the Big Sleazy. So that's what I did. But as I write these words, I want you to understand something. The subculture of law enforcement and parole and probation and bail bondsmen and shyster lawyers and private investigators is a sewer. One where the pervs outnumber the normals. Actually, I don't know if the normals exist. I live with a slapjack, a .38 special snub, and a badge holder on my kitchen counter. What that signifies is I blew my career as a real cop and became a lush and developed ulcers and a liver that probably looks like an eggplant. I also work for people who turn my stomach. I also had a difficult relationship with the cops I once called friends at NOPD. I couldn't blame them, but I have to say it hurt. This story starts at a car wash. Can you believe that? When I had the money, I always drove a Caddy convertible with fins and a rolled leather interior. Of course, I didn't make a great deal of money, so I usually ended up with a junker I rebuilt. Then I got a real deal on a 1959 lavender-pink Eldorado with a starched top, one that had a few holes in it. I repaired the dings and repainted the body and redid the interior and bought a second-hand top that I turned into a starched white beauty. And then I installed a stereo and loaded up my glove box with jazz and R&B and rock and roll tapes. And I left it at a car wash called Eddie's across the river in Algiers. I'm talking about Eddie Durbin, who I grew up with in the old Irish Channel when it was still a clean neighborhood where everybody got along, except for the turf beefs we had with the Italians, the kind of rumbles that went full blast in an alley or under a street light, with no adults paying any attention, with shanks and chains and chunks of steel pipe, a bonnet screwed on the end. That's how I got the scar through one eyebrow. Eddie was a real Mick. Both of his parents were from Dublin and supporters of the IRA. Eddie had done back-to-back nickels in Angola, but had stayed straight for 7 years and had made a success of his car wash. I always liked Eddie, thought he got a bad deal by the system, but I have tried to stop judging about those things. It was Dave Robicheaux who got me out of El Sal, 30 pounds down with dysentery, jungle ulcers on my calves, zoned on weed and coke that could put you on the other side of Mars, the mosquitoes singing inside my head all night long. I picked up my caddy 4 days late because I had to chase down a dancer on Bourbon Street for a bondsman in Biloxi. I'll tell you more about that later. In the meantime, don't let anyone tell you that the life of a PI has anything to do with professionalism. Most PIs are just like me. They took juice or they drank it. For a cop, that one never leaves the blackboard. I lived just 2 blocks from Jackson Square and St. Louis Cathedral and Pirates Alley, which was full of tourists and drunks. So I always parked inside my courtyard, which had a piked gate I kept locked.